I'm here with the last video in this unit, and in this video we are going to study this demographic transition theory. So let's start this video and get over with this unit. Uh, so in this demographic transition theory, first let's understand this term demographic transition theory. You see, demographic is made up of two words. First is the demo, which means population, and other is the graphic, which means description. So, demographic means the description of population. Now, what kind of description of population? For example, in the so far, what we are studying is the description of population. Then, how is it different from those descriptions? So in this we are going to include statistics. So by statistic we mean that we are going to work on three things. First is the collecting data, and then we will analyze the data, and then we will give some information regarding that. So statistic works with three things. First is the C for the collecting data, A for the analyzing data, and I for the information, like giving information from that data. Then what data we are going to use in this video, in this demographic transition theory? That data will include the BR, that is birth rate, death rate, and the total population. So this was the whole term demographic. Now let's see the another term, that is transition. The transition means the change in stage or phase. That is when drastic changes in characteristics and in the the qualities of the features of one phase changes. Then there's this transition, this change. And the third term is a theory. Theory means three things. First, we assume in that, and there's this main argument, and then is the criticism. Whenever we give a theory, first we assume it, and then we prove it. And while proving, we also give a main argument, that why the main purpose of this theory, that is the main argument. And then finally, there are criticisms. So this was the whole demographic transition theory. So if we sum up it all, we will say the change in population of a region from high death rate to low birth rate and low death rate. Means the first the birth rate and death rate are high, and they are changing to low birth rate and low death rate. When a change in society from predominantly agrarian, rural and illiterate means the initially the society is agrarian, more they are more engaged in agriculture. There are more rural areas, more rural dominated, and the people are illiterate. And then the change is taking place, and from agrarian they are becoming industrialized, urban, from rural to urban, and illiterate to literate society. When this change in the society occurs, the change in birth rate and death rate also occurs. And this change does not occur in very short span of time. It occurs over a period of time in different stages and phases. So this was the the introduction of the demographic transition theory. It is the change in population of a region from high death rate and birth rate to the low birth rate and death rate, when a change in society from agrarian, rural and illiterate to industrialized, urban and illiterate society takes place. Now let's see the scientists, not scholars behind which forwarded this, which put this concept, which discovered this concept. So Warren Thompson in 19, some credit is given to Warren Thompson, as in 1929 he for the first time give some primary conceptual remarks. Like he gives some kind of idea of what this theory will be, theory about this theory, and know the crux, you would say. Like he began, like he took the initial steps in forwarding this theory, but it was developed and finally conceptualized by the W.S. Nortenstein and Davis Kingsway in 1945. So these two scholars who are given credit for this theory, which are W.S. Nortenstein and Davis Kingsway, who conceptualized this theory in 1945. So now let's move on. Now, as I said, that the theory involves three things. First is the assumption, then main argument, and criticism. So let's see what assumptions they took in this theory. So these assumptions, three assumptions were taken by the Nortenstein and Thompson, which were the decline in mortality. So it's a mortality. Decline in mortality precedes the decline in fertility. The mortality is the death rate, and fertility is the birth rate. Now, decline in mortality means if the death rate will decline, then then later on, birth rate on its own will decline. That is the birth rate follows the death rate. That's what it means to say. Precedes means before, means that if death rate will decline, then in result of that, birth rate on its own will decline. That was the first assumption. The second assumption here is the fertility eventually adjusts to the level of mortality. Uh, as I said, that initially the death rate is declining, and later on, birth rate on its own adjusts to the mortality rate, to the death rate. And the third is that the socio-economic transformation of society takes place with demographic transition that we will see in the upcoming slides. Stages of this demographic transition theory. These are the three stages. So you can see in the first stage, there is the birth rate and death rate both are fluctuating, but the death rate is fluctuating a bit more. You can see the big crash and turns it is making, whereas the birth rate is also fluctuating, but it is fluctuating with low altitude, low frequency. You can say. Similarly, so you can see the BR and DR remained high above 35. You can see that both are the BR and DR both are high in the first stage. They are here is I think 40 and here is 30. So they are about uh, so 30 it's 30. So this is around at 35. So the BR and DR remained high above 35. The pace of population growth remained slow. You can say this is the total population, and its pace is really very slow here. Its growth is very slow, and almost every country of the world was in first stage about 200 years ago, and about 200 years ago when there was not that much industrialization, technology was not that top notch. That during that time, almost every country was in this stage. And at that time, the characteristics of the country, or we can say socio-economic condition, was the illiteracy, agriculture. Like more people were engaged in the agriculture, low life expectancy, health infrastructure. These things were not that much developed at the time, and less per capita income and poor socio-economic condition. Presently, a few countries are in this stage. For example, from Africa, there is Nigeria, South Sudan, Chad, and Zambia. And in Central America, there are Costa Rica, Belize, and Antigua. These are the countries presently who are still in this stage. Now, this is the stage two. Now, you can say at the beginning point, PR and DR both are high, and in the very initial point, at the very beginning point, both birth rate and death rate both are high, and all of a sudden, death rate declined while BR decreased slowly. Now we can see here that here is the initial stage. So initially both are high, and then the death rate declined very steeply, very suddenly, whereas the birth rate declined slowly, slowly. Or this also proves the first assumption of the theory taken by the Kingsway and Nordenstein, that the birth rate follows or death rate precedes the birth rate. So we can see it here. Population is exploded. Of course, since death rate is reduced and birth rate is still high, so of course population will increase. Around 10 to years back, present world developing countries were in this stage. So the countries which are still developing in the present time, like this India, China, and countries like that, they were in this stage to 10 to 20 years back. So in this stage, countries are semi literacy rate means the literacy rate is moderate, neither too high, neither too low. And agricultural come industrialization. Though agriculture is still practiced in good amount, but industrialization is also taking place. Average per capita income, like again the per capita income is moderate life expectancy and medium socioeconomic conditions. Presently, Bangladesh, Nepal, Turkmenistan, Bahrain from Asia comes under the stage 2, and North and Central African countries from Africa continent comes under this, and then Latin American countries from South and Central America. Now, also you can see here that population exploded. So you can see the population is at this level, and from this it went to this. It went to this. So you can see that population exploded. This is the population. Now the last stage is when the birth rate and death rate became low. That is about 10 per thousand. Now you can see it in the graph that both the birth rate and death rate both became low. And steady population growth is also became steady, means it's not very rapid, or it's not exploding, it's very slowly increasing. Present developed and to be developed countries fall in this category. The developed countries like the America, UK, countries like that fall under this category. And countries which are going to develop in the next few years or next 2 decades, they also come under this. Now, if we talk about the socioeconomic conditions, high literacy rate is found in this stage. Industrial, of course, they are not that much. Agriculture, they have gone industrial. The income is high, per capita income, and the life expectancy is also high. An example are Canada and US from North America, and the North and Western Europe countries from Europe. In Europe, the North and Western Europe, and the Japan from Asia, and New Zealand and Australia from Oceania. These countries fall in this stage 3. So let's again see that the birth rate and death rate both are very low. They are not very high, and the population growth is also steady. So these were the these were the three stages of the demographic transition theory. With this video comes to an end, and we have completed this unit, and now we will be moving on to our next unit, that is unit 4, in which we will study the settlement, rural and urban settlement. So thank you and have a wonderful day.